Hey, Amir, you are on with Promise and Forrest.
Hello, hello.
Hello, what do you want to tell us today? It says,
Yeah,
what did it say here? It says the existence of a creator is evident. What's your evidence for that?
yes, I'll say the evidence is all around us. The universe, human beings, ecosystems, physics, atoms, electrons, everything around us points to the existence of a creator.
How?
I guess, yeah. So the evidence would be
Because for me,
with design.
I
I don't
see all
see
those
that. Yeah.
things. Yeah, I was going to say,
Excuse me?
I see all these things and I don't see it as evidence for a creator. So, how are you drawing from this that these things are a reason for a creator?
Okay. Yeah. So in our human experience, my experience, your experience, Promise's experience, do we know of a single thing in our life experience that contains information and complexity that did not come from an intelligence?
Yes.
Just one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which one?
Oh, I would say, cells, DNA.
We know that came from no intelligence.
It's pretty evident that intelligence wasn't required for it. And we have no evidence for there being intelligence involved in it. So, as far as we know anything.
It did not come from intelligence. How so? I need to elaborate on
it's
that.
evident that it's like we have plenty of evidence to say that it came about by natural processes, and we have no reason to say that it came about through any supernatural processes. So as much as we can know anything, I would say that we could say that's one thing that definitely has complexity and information and is also you can point to anything else if you want to look at like the layers of the Grand Canyon and draw some sort of meaning out of like the code in the strata there and call that information, and that's definitely a complex system. That for sure is created without intelligence. You could drive meaning from those lines and make a language out of it, but wouldn't make it magical.
That's my problem. Is you're using some really subjective terms because I could say
Yeah.
that I think something is complex, and you might not agree with that. So I don't know how to answer you really. I'm more interested, like what is the like you said, it's all around us, and I'm saying I don't
it's
see
evident.
it. So
Yeah, because Forrest mentioned that it's evidence that it didn't come from a designer, but he said that there's a natural. I don't deny natural processes in the world. I mean, there's processes in my computer right now running my monitor and everything. But just because the processes in there and I didn't see the creator of it or designer doesn't mean that it's evidence that there is no creator. So basically,
right, but there is actually evidence of a creator in a computer, though. Like there's like trademark stamps of like the companies that made it. We can talk
also
to people
like
who
you
make
can
them for a
watch
living.
somebody make it. Yeah, we can observe
and more importantly, like we know the things that make the things that make the things that make computers are designed by human beings. So it's not like just magically there's a computer chip here and we don't know what it is, and we know how we know what the things that make it and the things that make those things and the things that make those things and how we can break them down all the way to natural to natural components, which are then machined and created by humans from there. With life, it's nothing like that. We know the things that make the things that make the things that make life, and we know that they come about by natural processes. And we know that they self-assemble by natural processes, and we know that they do the things that life does by natural processes. So, like I said, we don't know everything about it for sure, but there's strong evidence that that it's a natural process. Every part of it that we know about is a natural process, and we have no evidence for anything supernatural. So there's no reason to then factor in a supernatural explanation when there's just no reason to put one there.
I mean, there's a couple of things you said. I mean, for example, like the computer, I don't need to see the creator of the computer to know that he exists, right? I mean, it could be anything. Say, let's not use the computer. Let's say a brand new machine. Let's say a quantum computer, and let's say we found it in a cave or something. We would not assume that this came over billions of years by grains of sand coming and bouncing together, and all of a sudden a quantum computer, a brand new machine, like we never seen before. We wouldn't say like, oh yeah, this came by itself by natural processes. You would say, well, hang on a second, let's take a look at this thing, and we realize, whoa, there's a lot going on here. Could this really have been just by natural processes of atoms bumping into each other? That's my main contention. You mentioned other things, but I want you to just address that first.
Right. So I would just point back to even like, because I can just repeat myself on that, but it's not really worth anybody's time. So instead, I'll just repeat myself on the other thing. When we look at life, we don't need to sit here and wonder like if it came about this way or that way. We can actually do some studying on it and learn about it. And we know the things that make the things that make the things that make life. And we know that every part of that step, every part of it that we do know is a natural process. So, like,
So
I don't understand why.
Mechanism. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'm just saying I understand why you feel the need to include a supernatural process when we already have more than enough evidence of a natural process.
Yeah, so you're saying there's mechanisms in the world that create things that lead to life and all that. That's what you're saying, right?
More or less, yeah.
Since we have those mechanisms, we observe them, we don't have to assume there is a creator. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying we don't have to assume there's anything beyond those mechanisms unless we have demonstration of it. There are people out there who believe that natural processes are guided by God, that God is the one who rather than creating life just out of whole cloth, guided abiogenesis, guided evolution, blah, blah, blah. But still, that's committing the exact same issue for me, which is that it is saying it's taking only natural processes and only natural ingredients and inventing a supernatural world around them for no reason. And it's something that you have no actual evidence for. You're pointing to the natural world to justify your belief in a supernatural thing that made the natural world. And that's silly. It's like saying that there are no ice giants in the world. Therefore, we know that Odin is real because Odin drove the ice giants away. That's not proof of Odin. That's proof of the non-existence of ice giants, and you're creating a story around that's irrelevant.
Okay. Yes, I'll mention. I think the issue is you said like there is no evidence. I think we should maybe done this sooner, but I think we should establish at least what do we mean by evidence. So you mentioned there is no evidence. So I will ask you if you could define evidence, maybe multiple pieces of evidence. We know empirical. We have empirical evidence that which you can taste, touch, smell, no problem. I accept that. I'm pretty sure you do as well. But beyond that, because I can't taste, touch, smell, or see the creator, but I don't think we stop at that and say, well, if there's no empirical evidence, there's no evidence for God. So I would ask you, is there anything other than empirical evidence that you would say is evidence, and how would you define that as evidence beyond empirical?
I would to use the most colloquial terms possible, I would say that evidence is just a reason to believe in a thing. There's no touch without a trace. And so, like, if this thing exists in any capacity at all and is doing the things that you're saying it's doing, there should be some reason that we can see that it's something it left behind, something that it left a mark, some independent evidence for itself. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I would point to empirical evidence, something that is, somewhat sensory. I also think that evidence, or I should say, like, an idea like this needs to be like falsifiable. We need to be able to say, here's the thing that if I can say this is true, then absolutely this God doesn't exist. That destroys it. And I don't think you have that. I can say that for evolution, and I can say that for abiogenesis. I can say that for all sorts of things. But like, that's one thing. Like, having something that makes testable predictions is a big point of it being evidentiary. If you have a model that you're able to say, okay, if this is true, then I should be able to see it do these things, and then you indeed find that. That's a line of evidence. Those testable predictions help a lot. Like, there's a lot of things, dude, that we could be doing that's better than just I see things that look like they're designed, so I think they probably are. Like, that's just not good enough for me.
So yeah, you mentioned. So when I asked you to define evidence, you said evidence is basically just reasoning, right? And then you're saying, so with that, there's no you don't have sufficient reasons. So yeah, when you say there is no evidence, you're basically saying there is no sufficient reason for me to believe in a creator. Did I get you there? Correct?
Well, I mean, I was trying to avoid giving like some bullshit, like just dictionary boring, because I can say evidence is like data that's used. Well, I'm saying, like, evidence is like it's information, some information that is
compelling
used to justify a belief.
Yeah,
that's used to justify a belief in a thing. Like, I could say that's something, right? But like, then the reason why I avoid doing that is because then we're going to get in this weird fucking back and forth of like, well, the information that life exists is reason to believe in a God. You know what I mean? I'm talking about something. I appreciate bringing up empiricism, but like that's really what I'm looking for, is something that actually leaves a trace that gives me a reason to believe in this thing as opposed to that thing. Evidence that points in any possible direction isn't good enough on its own.
Yeah. So Amir, for example, Amir, the reason that I believe that a computer was made by a person, you know, like you said, if you found a computer in a cave or something, is not because the computer is so complex. It's because we have all this evidence to support that humans came up with this and built this, and it's man-made materials that we can, you know, see how they're made and all this stuff. It's information that I know, that I have learned about the world. Now, if a snowflake falls and you point to it and you say, "Look, this came from a creator. It's complex." I have no. Where's the evidence that there are creators out there that create snowflakes? Intelligent design, you know. So that's why complexity is not a good argument for me, because that's not why I believe a computer is made by a man.
Yeah. I brought up the computer, but I emphasized, I meant like, let's say a new machine we never ever seen before.
That still applies. That still applies.
Yeah.
If you show me a chair, then I'm going to say, yeah, I believe you that a person or something that a person made that chair, because I know that that's a thing we do. We can witness it. It's, you know, it's not because it can be a very simple chair.
You're saying humans made it, but like I'm talking about intelligence, right? Could it have been something else other than a human, is what I'm asking. You would say probably not, because like chimpanzees are intelligent, dolphins are intelligent, but they're not intelligent enough to make a chair. You said chair, right?
Sure, if we want to go with chair. You'd have to give me good reason to think that anything else made this. My whole point, okay, I don't know if you're understanding, is that complexity doesn't imply creator or not, or intelligent design or not.
Okay, so let's say like when we're talking about like children who first start going into like school and stuff, they learn how to read and write. Let's like a simple sentence like "My name is Forrest," for example. That sentence on a piece of paper, does it contain information?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, and is it a lot of information or a little bit?
Quite a bit.
Not much compared to what, though. It depends. If that's all
information.
That's all we can know.
Forrest said quite a bit, but you said not much. Hang on, I can.
That shows how subjective that question is. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not really. I mean, my name is Forrest. I mean, which one do you want to
have?
A
lot of information compared to what? Compared to if I was given a book about Forrest, or compared to having no information about Forrest?
I mean, you can say a little bit, a lot.
It sounds like you're saying. It sounds you're saying like this sentence exists in a vacuum. It's kind of like what you're like looking at this from a purely just like philosophical standpoint. That contains a huge amount of information. It implies.
Well, yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to get to, but yeah. Okay, so yeah, so
it implies that I exist, whoever wrote the I. It implies that names exist, which tells you some sort of societal hierarchy that's going on, that these people have names to communicate with each other. It tells you the existence of language, tells you the existence of writing, tells you the existence of writing utensils, tells you the existence of the technology in that scenario, tells you a lot about the history of that culture, the fact that they would identify themselves in this way, tells you the structure of the language, that it's structured in that way. Like, there's a huge amount of information in the fact that sentence exists in the first place. What are you getting to? What's the point?
Whole, like, relative to what I'm trying to get to that. So let's just say it
sounds like you're trying to get to irreducible complexity in the weirdest, most circuitous way possible, and I just want to get there. You know what I mean?
Well, you said evidence is reasoning, so I'm trying to use that to get to the conclusion. So if we're talking about a piece of paper with a statement on it, "My name is Forrest," let's say that's a bit of information, and behind that we do see intelligence, but it's a child, right? Say, can we expect them to write a thesis? They cannot, right? Until their intelligence gets a little bit better, and next thing they're in college, they write a thesis, which has a lot more information, a lot more complexity, a lot more structure, and behind that we see a bit more intelligence. Then you push it, go to something like a house, right? Someone might have finished a degree in software engineering, but they can't build a house. That requires more information, more complexity. And with that, we find more intelligence, more knowledge, more wisdom. Push it to phones, push to CPUs, push to AI, push to quantum computing. The more information and complexity that we see in things, the more intelligence, 9 times out of 10, and wisdom and power and capability we see. So when we get to the most complex thing, the most information-filled thing that we know of, which is the universe, human beings, the brain, the way it rewires itself based on its environment and all the inputs, based on that pattern, that evidence, which according to you is based on that reasoning, what is the most logical, reasonable conclusion to come to based on that pattern? Do we say that, well, there must be a super intelligence beyond us that brought all these mechanisms into existence, or we just say flat out, nah, it's nothing, natural processes, and that's it? What's most reasonable?
So
what's most reasonable is to believe whatever's, yeah, and what's reasonable is to believe what's true, not what we're like, well, I have to pick something and fill in the blank. So
right.
Offering these options and you have to pick one is not an honest response.
Yeah,
anyway, sorry,
what was most reasonable? Which option is more? Because it can't be both. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it would be. I mean, look, both of us can't be right. Obviously,
it can be neither. Yeah. Both of us can't be right. My answer is I don't know.
Yeah, I'll answer your question with a statement and a question. The most reasonable thing to assume when you see the whole universe is to continue to assume that there is no super intelligence out there. That is the most reasonable thing. And now I follow this up with a question for you. It sounds like you're making the very common. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. It sounds like you're making the very common irreducible complexity type argument that for something too complex to exist, there must be something more complex that created it. A watch needs a watchmaker, and that watchmaker needs a god. And like this, you have to have these increasingly complex. Okay, we grant it. Now you're stuck in this infinite regression. What made God? If God is so unbelievably complex that it was able to make the universe, what even more complex thing made it?
So I mean, not getting into the whole, like, the idea of whether God is like always there and everything, which that has arguments of its own. But I'm saying, let's start with design and intelligence. If you want to get to the characteristics,
I would prefer you to answer my question. I would prefer you to answer my question, because we all know you're just going to do the special pleading thing. So I'd prefer you to get over with it, and then we can move on to the next thing.
No, it's not special pleading, because, like, yes, you asked a question, but I wanted you to, like, break down why is it not reasonable to then say, well, yeah, there must be intelligence if you see the patterns in the world around us.
What made God?
Amir, let me lay this out for you. You're claiming that the universe is so complex that
it's both. Wait, hang on. Who's asking the question?
It's the same question. Speaking. I'm just rewording it for you. So what made God? Because what you're saying is that the universe is so complex that it had to have a designer, which I would assume that designer creator must be even more complex. So therefore, what made this God?
Nothing made a God.
Right. And so that's what I'm talking about. It's special pleading. Everything complex. That's exactly what I was saying. We all know you're going to do special pleading. Get it over with. This is special pleading. No, everything is so complex. Complex things require a more complex designer. The universe is the most complex thing, so it requires an even more complex designer. However, that incredibly complex designer doesn't need any designer. It's the only thing that breaks the rule. So now I can just say the universe doesn't need a designer. It's the most complex thing that made everything else. It doesn't need a designer. It's the most complex thing. It doesn't need a designer. And it means the exact same nothing as what you're saying to me.
No, but that's what I'm getting into. Like, because I said I gave my answer, but then I have to obviously elaborate on it. The idea is you cannot just have like the universe. Yes, is complex. You're saying that. Well, if I'm saying there is a creator that's complex beyond our imagination, you're saying the universe is. The universe, did it have a beginning, or was it always there?
We don't know.
You don't know.
No idea.
The Big Bang is the beginning of the universe as we know it. And there are some cosmologists that would say that is actually the beginning of space and time and everything. And there are some cosmologists that would say that actually the universe existed in some other way before then as well. There's different models. We don't know which one's which. And I'm willing to just say, I don't know. You, on the other hand, are willing to say, I don't know, therefore magic. And I don't understand why you're comfortable doing that.
Yeah, it's not magic. I don't believe in magic. And like,
okay, by what means did this God create the universe?
The reason why I asked, like, why did the universe have a beginning or not? And it's not special pleading, right? Because I mean, again, let's get into it. Can something come from nothing?
We don't know. Because I don't know what nothing is.
Yeah, we have to define nothing, and then it stops becoming nothing.
I mean, at that point, if you want to sound special pleading, and it's the whole God of the gaps, and you're doing the don't know of the gaps. I mean, if you want to go there, if I'm special,
absolutely not.
Don't
Amir,
know of the gaps.
Amir.
What?
Wait. Can
Amir,
we reason?
I don't.
Wait,
Amir.
Can we just one thing? Can we reason?
No.
Through certain things with that? What?
I'm gonna stop you because what you just said is the stupidest fucking thing I've heard this entire show. I don't know of the gaps is called being honest. When you don't know something, you say, I don't know. And you don't pretend to know. And you don't pretend to say, not only do I know, but I know the guy that did it, and I know the book that it wrote, and I know whether or not he wants me to have butt sex and eat shrimp. That's the bullshit that you're talking about. It's not. That's what the fucking Bible says.
I didn't mention any books.
The point is,
I didn't mention any books. I didn't mention any books yet.
You're talking about, yes, I know you didn't. This is a call-in show where we talk to lots of people. Most of them are Christians. I'm not bringing on your argument. I'm expounding upon it. The point is, Amir, that when we say we don't know, we are being honest. We are not filling in the blanks with any supernatural thinking. We're saying we don't fucking know and we hope to know someday. That's
we're leaving
honesty.
the blank. Yeah, we're just
not.
We're not giving an answer.
We're
withholding our answer until we have good reason to provide an answer.
Evidence for you is reasoning. So can we reason through things to then know them? Is that possible?
I feel like you misunderstood me. Evidence is not pure reasoning.
I'm going
evidence
off of what
and reason go hand to hand. No, I said evidence is. I said evidence is a reason to believe. Reasoning on its own is its own thing. So I'm not like just reasoning through something is not in itself purely evidence like that. It's just not. But that's not important. The point is that for me to sit here and say I don't know what nothing is because I've never seen nothing. I don't have any samples of nothing upon which to run tests. I don't know what nothing looks like, acts like, behaves like. I don't know what nothing is. Nobody does. Nobody's ever seen a nothing before. So I don't know what nothing can or can't do. And I don't know if nothing can make something or not. I don't know what that even, I don't know what that question actually means. It doesn't make any sense to me because it's outside of my understanding of the universe. So I don't know what that means. I don't know where the universe came from. I don't know what happened before the Big Bang. I don't know. And I hope to find out someday. I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't know. Therefore, there must be something. There must be something, some guy that can do all this stuff that also doesn't obey all the logical rules that I just laid out.
I'm not asking you to know. Can we make an inference to the best explanation like we do in our day-to-day lives for many, many things? For example, my great-grandmother, let me make a point. Make a point. Just like my great-great-grandmother from 10 generations ago, am I prepared to say I don't know that she existed? No, I do know, because with the reasoning, the inference, the best explanation through reasoning, I come to the conclusion.
Your grandmother,
Amir, can I explain?
Does your
grandmother
violate the laws of physics?
Yeah, and I'd like to. We're missing a whole gap of logic here that I'm just going to lay out for you really quickly, and then I'm going to mute you. We're missing a massive part of logic in this conversation with that Forrest and I have both been trying to explain to you. So here's an example. If we're at a party and Forrest and I are standing there and there's a person across the room and Forrest asks me, what does that person do for a living? What makes more sense? When I've never met this person, when I don't know, for me to say, I have no idea, or for me to sit there and speculate and say, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I don't even know if the person has a job or not. So what makes more sense? To be honest and say, I don't know. Let's see if we can find out. Or to sit and speculate and try to make something up and then go with it and then base my entire life around that.
I mean, that was a false analogy. That wasn't really linked to what I was saying, but I want to
as an analogy for the logic of giving. So Amir, that's the analogy to show you why we're saying I don't know. It's not an analogy for creationism or for evolution or anything. It's to show you why we're literally saying, I don't know, because we do not know. And that's the only logical answer to give in a situation when you don't know something.
So I
love that you accused her of making a false analogy because she brought up whether or not a person has a job. When you a second ago brought up whether or not your grandmother existed. It's just, you're not serious about this.
If I said, I don't, wait a second. I'm going to say something, right? Going off of what you guys just said.
Shall be waiting.
If I said that my great-great-grandmother from 15 generations ago, I don't know that she existed. Is that logical? Is it reasonable?
Does the existence of your grandmother go outside of the current understanding of the laws of physics?
Not my question. Is it reasonable for me to say, I don't know if my great, however many generations ago, grandmother existed? I don't know. Is that reasonable?
Yeah. Of course not, because the existence of your grandmother is something that conforms to our understanding of the laws of the universe. So of course that wouldn't be reasonable. However, talking about what happened before the Big Bang does necessarily go outside of our current understanding of the laws of the universe. Therefore, it's appropriate to say, I don't know. I'm not saying nothing happened. I'm saying I don't know what happened.
No. The reason I'm mentioning is because when I asked you the question about can something come from nothing, you said I never seen nothing. I don't know nothing. So therefore, you never seen your great grandmother, but you know for sure. Because you said, of course not. You know for sure that she must have existed according to certain patterns that we see, the rules that we see in the world. So going back to my original question,
because apparently it didn't sink in. I'll just repeat myself with the word nothing now. The concept of nothing existing goes outside of everything that I know about the universe. Therefore, I'm not saying that nothing never existed. I'm saying I don't know that nothing existed or not, and I don't know what that would mean if it did. I don't know doesn't mean I reject entirely this entire possible premise. It means I don't know. That's why I chose the words I don't know, because I wanted to say I don't know.
Amir, why are you? Can I ask you back to your grandmother or your great grandmother? Why are you calling her that to begin with?
What is that? Why am I calling her what? Great grandmother? Because that's what we call
whatever
her.
It is.
Language.
Okay, right? Why? Like, did somebody tell you that you have this great grandmother?
No, based on the inference, reasonable explanation, there must have been a great grandmother of mine. Without the universe.
So do you
without
understand now how that's a really bad analogy then? Because there's like, do people have great grandmothers? And we can prove it. Do people have those?
Do people have great grandmothers? Yes, they have great grandmothers.
And do we have evidence of that being true?
I have them.
Do we have evidence of that being true?
The inference to the best explanation, right?
Right. So that's why I believe I had a great grandmother, because we have good reason to believe that, because there's actual things that line up with reality. Why do you keep interrupting us, Amir? It's really annoying because you're not answering our questions. You're not answering our questions, and you're not listening. And then when we do make a point, you go back and talk about something else that has nothing to do with what we just said. It's very frustrating. I don't feel like you're engaging honestly in this conversation.
You're not engaging honestly either. I've been interrupted twice.
Amir, Amir, I'm going to just rephrase her question because for some reason you interrupt me less than you do her. Just really quickly, if you have a great grandmother, we might be able to tell through genetics or through genealogies. And also, more importantly, we know for sure other people have great grandmothers. We know people who have met their great grandmother or have a trace, a line to them, or who have like some sort of a genealogy that goes back to tell us about them. We know for sure that there are lots of people in the world that have great grandmothers. Pretty sure that damn near every person in the world has great grandmothers. We have yet to find a person who does not have a great grandmother. You may not know the name of your great grandmother, but we have plenty of evidence that great grandmothers exist.
100%.
And here we are interrupting again, so now I'm going to put you on mute.
He just explained to you over and over again. Right? You're not being honest.
So I'm just going to mute Amir for a second because the dude cannot contain himself. We know that great grandmothers exist. We've met a few. We have documentation of them. We know they're real. We have evidence for great grandmothers, and we have met great grandmothers. We know great grandmothers' names. We know their hobbies. We know their husbands. Maybe we know their wives. We know all sorts of things about great grandmothers and what they are and who they are and where they come from and where they went. Do that for God. Show me the evidence of a God, the documentation of a God, all the logs and data and records that we have of gods, and all the universe that these gods have all the universes that these gods have made. Show me how every universe has a traceable God, and therefore it's reasonable to assume, just like with a great grandmother, that this universe has a God. Turning it over to you, Amir.
Yes, you're not there. That wasn't answering my question. Every time I try to make an argument, you guys mute. That's not fair. That's disingenuous.
Are you going to answer my question, or are we done with the call?
Are we going to answer my question? Are we going to engage? Respectfully.
This is not your show, Amir.
You didn't
Are you
listen
going
to
to
him,
answer the
did you,
question that
Amir?
I just... No, he was waiting for his turn to talk. I tell you what.
He doesn't know what you asked.
Well, indeed.
I was going to say,
Amir,
if you can repeat my question back to me, I will continue talking to you. If not, I think we're done.
You can answer mine. We can get somewhere, hopefully.
What question did I just ask you, Amir?
What question did I pose to you? Can something come from nothing, man?
Yeah, so you don't care. You don't care.
You already answered that, and now you can't even tell Forrest what he asked you. If you can, I answered you. I said that I don't think something can come from nothing because I have no reason to think that. I don't know what nothing is. So just the question alone, I disagree with. Can you tell me what Forrest just asked you?
Well, this is why I'm drawing the analogy.
Can you tell me what Forrest just asked you?
I could have put something else.
Can you state back to me what Forrest just asked you, or else I'm dropping the call?
Fine, drop the call if you want to engage. No problem. Not my fault.
Yeah, that's exactly
all
what it is.
All you had to do was say what Forrest said. That's so infuriating.
It's the constant bullshit of like, if you don't stoop to my level and wallow in the same shit, then that's proof that I've won. Because you couldn't do the thing that I demanded you to do on Not My Show. We asked a simple question. You couldn't keep up with it. Try again next time, Amir. Or don't. Don't is also fine. Because holy fuck, nobody learned anything for 30 minutes.
I feel like we went backwards in that conversation. Like we were maybe getting somewhere and it just got worse and worse and worse and the listening got less and less. But
hey, if you liked this video, why don't you click that like button?
And if you didn't
like it, you would
subscribe.
Okay.
You didn't give me a chance.
There was such a long pause.
What are you on speed or something? I barely had a chance.
Let's try again. Hey, I hope you liked. Hey, I hope you. Fuck. Hey there. I hope you liked that clip. Hey, I hope you liked that clipper just now. The one that you just watched with your eyes. If you did like it, why don't you click that like button?
And if you didn't like it, tell Jimmy to go fuck himself.
Hey, I hope you liked that clip right now. If you did like it, why don't you hit that like button?
And if you didn't like it, go ahead and subscribe anyway.